The reason that dementia residents go to a hospital facility is commonly because of having had a stroke or a CVA, cancer, and they've become immobile, or diabetes and swollen feet and limited circulation with vascular dementia. So with all these disabilities, mobility's restricted or reduced markedly, and that's why they're able to go to the village hospital. If they're still mobile, they're unable to be at the hospital because they may escape. So if they're immobile because of these conditions, they can go to a hospital rather than to an advanced dementia facility, which has its advantages in that often the same staff that work at the dementia facility will work at the hospital on site at the retirement village. So they know them, they're integrated with them, they have friendships with them, and also visitors know where the facility is and are actually more likely to visit the hospital at the retirement village than find out where yet another facility, advanced dementia facility, is. And also, you know, the stigma and prejudice around not just a dementia facility, but an advanced dementia facility with all its securities and disabilities and restrictions and difficulties. Yeah, so as time moves on through that phase, the person gets less and less visitors, whereas people are more likely to want to visit a hospital than an advanced dementia facility. If the condition's acute, like if the person in the dementia facility has been pushed over, that's always sad, or has fallen over because of lack of balance and they fracture their neck or femur, they'll go to the large local hospital in the city. But once they have healed as much as they're going to from that, then they'll be passed on to the local retirement village hospital. I mean, certainly in New Zealand, these big retirement villages, it goes through graded steps from independent living, where you've got a home with 1 or 2 bedrooms, to assisted living, where you go for meals at the main lounge, but you've got your own home. Nursing home, where you can't manage to live on your own, but you can live in a facility where you can walk outside independently and freely. And then, of course, the dementia unit, if you've got dementia, which is often the story up from the nurse's home. And then from either the nursing home or the dementia unit, if you get either of those conditions, a CVA, a stroke, cancer, heart attack, where you become immobile and need full-time care, then you go to the hospital. Generally, the nursing home has about 30 residents, the dementia home 30 residents, and the hospital 60 residents in large retirement villages in New Zealand. But it varies. The numbers vary a lot from place to place. But the aspect of being able to move through, that's why a lot of people go to these places, to be able to have those facilities in place to be able to go to if they need to, and it's not such an upheaval as going directly on from your own home. I mean, there's many views on that as to whether you want to stay in your own home to the bitter end, or whether you want to go to a retirement village and, you know, ease through the stages if you need to. I mean, not everyone has to go into a nursing home or certainly a dementia unit, but at least it's there if you need it. I think my opinion is that I'd personally rather stay in my own home, but other people have varying opinions. But I think in the instance, if your wife has dementia, you know, and I think in that instance, to move into a unit, an independent unit when it's early stages dementia, independent unit at a retirement village is a good idea, because then you're set up there, she's orientated, you're orientated, you've downsized, your children know where you're living, and it's a good transition. And then when and if she needs to go to the dementia unit, you're on hand as the husband to visit daily. That is really the best recipe, because it really helps the quality of life for the wife when she sees her husband daily. It's much easier transport-wise. Well, for him to walk 200 metres is much easier than having to come in the car, you know, drive for half an hour, which it often is, because these big, great complexes have to be out of the city because they take up so much space, half a farm or whatever. So a lot of driving's involved, and when you get older, you don't necessarily want to be driving long distances, whereas if you're living on site, it helps a lot. So the hospital, you know, going from a dementia facility to a hospital, of course, yeah, the downside, of course, is that you're so immobile. I mean, someone with dementia needs to be immobile to be in a hospital. Otherwise, they'll just stand up from the chair, walk out from the hospital and get lost on the highway. And I mean, yeah, they very easily get lost, people with dementia. You can take 3 or 4 people out for a walk and, you know, you think everyone's there. And then you look around and then you've only got, say you started with 4 people. And then 1 minute later you look around and you've only got 3 people. Someone can nip off in another direction and you can lose them really quickly. It's quite hazardous, actually. So that's why to be in the hospital, you've got to be immobile, because there's no security. There's no 24/7 security where you've got codes to, you know, get in and out. It's just open door. Visitors can come and go, staff can come and go, and residents can come and go. So that's why people with dementia can't be there, because of lack of orientation. They can get out, certainly, but then they'll get lost once they get out. Whereas the other people in the hospital that haven't got dementia, if they've got walking ability, generally their walking ability is very restricted, but at least they can walk around the village and maybe walk a little bit in the garden and not get lost, and so it's fine for them. So these are all the aspects that have to be taken into consideration. There's so many aspects, aren't there, to dementia, taking into account all these things. But if you know and are informed of these aspects in advance with dementia, with your relative, your friend, your family member, it helps so much, because then it's not confusing for you. I mean, and also another thing, you'll be upskilled. The other really important thing, it's a small point but an important one, these things can happen very quickly. And if you're not prepared, it can be so confusing for the relative as to what's happening, how's it happen, you know, too much of a rush. If you're not informed, if you haven't got the lines of communication, it can all happen very quickly. It's like an assault in a sense, onslaught of activity. And it can become overwhelming for the relative, and then they're unable to support the person. So that's why, if you understand the process of what might happen, for example, if you know that, well, you know, your parent has fractured their femur, they're in the hospital, chances are, in the large hospital, chances are when they come back, they'll be moved quite quickly to the hospital of the village complex, the retirement village complex. So while your mother is in hospital, it's a good idea to have things ready to pack up. But then she may be mobile enough that she's able to come back to the dementia unit and rehabilitate. So these are the questions that you need to ask the charge nurse or the clinical manager, the doctor. Call a special meeting if you have to. Call the doctor, have a meeting with the charge nurse. Is mum going to have the ability to come back and stay at the dementia unit, or is she being moved on to the hospital so I can prepare things? Or it may be she goes on to a rehabilitation hospital, Hill Morton Hospital here in Christchurch, where she's rehabilitated and able to come back to the dementia unit. Amazingly, women in their 80s, mid-80s, late 80s even, recover. I've witnessed this. Recover from a neck of femur fracture, which is a serious injury, get rehabilitated, and you think, oh, they'll never be able to come back. And they do. So that's why all these options you need to be aware of, you need to be prepared for all of them, be updated, informed, upskilled, and have the lines of communication in place so that you can be on the ready and flex with whatever aspect comes to be as things go through. So I've written these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, on all these issues, these complex issues, and the videos here. And thank you so much for your looks and your likes and your subscriptions. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.